pleasure to introduce our presenter for the day. This is Dean Stevenson from Manassas, Virginia.
Yes, ma'am.
All right,
Fantastic.
up the road.
All right, yeah, thank you. And thank you guys for being here bright and early on the fourth day of a conference. I know that you are probably overloaded, and if you're anything like me, you've been burning both ends of the candlestick, and so you're probably like, hey, I want to learn, but at the same time, if you just want to let me sit here and sleep for 2 hours, that'd also be cool. And so, unfortunately, we're going to be doing the opposite. We're going to be going a mile a minute, and because I want to get you all doing some really deep thinking, but I know there's people in this room, I was just checking the form, that are also likely here because they want actionable strategies that they can go home and start working on right now. And so we're going to really split up today into several really large chunks to get you doing some thinking, to get you started on some really deep thinking about rethinking, changing the way you're thinking, and then giving you some actionable strategies that you can think about how you can adapt those for your own division. Before we get too far into it, I just want to kind of show you all, if you're sitting at a table that doesn't have resources on it, you are going to have a lot less fun than everybody else. So if you could move to a table that has resources on it, and then also if you're currently sitting by yourself or with just one other person, some of our activities will work best with 3 or 4. So if you want to kind of make those moves while we're getting started, that would be awesome. But we're going to get right into it. So if you haven't had a chance to scan your QR code, that's just to receive the resources. I do not sell your data to anyone. I will just be sending you a link afterward to make sure you get those resources. It's on your table, and I'll bring it back up at the end if you miss it right now. When I checked the survey, we were at almost 75% as central office employees who work within the world of mentoring and induction. And so that's awesome because that means we can be really pointed in our conversations, and so I'm excited to do that with you. So I want to do some quick housekeeping items that are going to help us throughout today. The first is you mostly already in less than 5, but if your table has 6, could you go ahead and split into 2 quote-unquote teams? But if you're under 6, then you can just be 1 team at your table. I'll just give you a second to see if you need a change. The second is I ask kindly for no sneak peeks. So you have a bunch of different graphic organizers on your table. They're face down for a reason and they're numbered. And I'll talk about how we use those numbers in a second, but no sneak peeks, please. Thirdly, slides and resources will be shared. I welcome photos. I'm honored when someone takes a picture of a slide, but just know that if you're like, I'm writing frantically and I missed that, you will have access to everything, including I am recording this session. My boss wants proof that I didn't just lie to her to get to Boston. So if you're uncomfortable with that, it is this right here. It's only on this. You should not need to worry about it, but if you're uncomfortable with this being recorded, then feel free. That just reminded me I should stand over here probably. Then feel free to talk to me at the end of the session and we can make sure that you're not anywhere in it. So just don't walk over here. All right? And then lastly, parking lot. We have 2 different ones. Feel free. They're the same parking lot. They're just really massive. So you don't have to walk very far. Sticky notes already on your table. If you have something as we're going through it, I will have time to answer questions, I'm hoping. And you can always pull me to your table when we're working on different activities. But if there's something you think would be useful to discuss, feel free to write it on a sticky at any point, throw it on the parking lot, and then when we do kind of the group work, I'll be reading those and making sure those get addressed. So let's roll. Some things you're going to see today in our presentation just to kind of keep us normed. The first is I do time some of my activities. So if you see a timer, that'll be helping us stay on track. It'll be in the bottom corner. And then if you're one of those research buffs and you want to know where this is coming from, you'll see citations in the other corner. We'll also be doing collaborative activities. When you see the 3 heads pop up, that means I want you to work with your team. If you see only 1 head pop up, that means I'd like you to do some individual thinking. If you see these pretty squares show up, I'm a sticky fanatic, so that just means we're going to do some activities on sticky notes. And then if you see the number, that's when you get to peek. So when you see an agenda with a number on it, that's when we get to open up those graphic organizers, all right? So also, I know some of us are going to have different types of thinking, or we're going to think more deeply, or we're going to have different things to talk about. I'm going to always, if there's something where there might be a lull in conversation, have an extension activity in really bright yellow to keep us thinking and on task throughout the entirety of today. All right, so our goal, pretty simple. Introduce, adapt, and refine strategies to reimagine how we partner with new teachers to better address their needs. And we are at Learning Forward, and I think this is really relevant to the Learning Forward standards, 2 of them specifically. I'm not going to read these to you, but we're really going to be working on leadership and learning designs. Specifically in leadership, we're going to be talking about how we build educator capacity, and I'd love to throw in there new teacher educator capacity. I don't know why I said teacher and educator. That's a weird double. All right. And then also we're going to ground our work in research and theories about learning to implement evidence-based learning designs. So we're not going to make it up. We're going to think about what the research says and how we can get better at what we're doing to better support our teachers. And now if you came here, you likely read our participant outcomes, but I'm going to do it anyway because I think it's really important. I know I've heard some grumblings from people, no offense to any presenters, that were like, I've read these outcomes and they didn't align. So I want you to give me crap at the end of the session if I don't hit these. So participants will identify and prioritize the most critical needs of their new teachers to ensure targeted, effective professional learning. They're going to recognize how restructuring support systems can enhance new teacher satisfaction and retention. We're going to explore effective and innovative graphic organizers and protocols to create clarity and cohesion within mentoring and induction. And lastly, we're going to adapt and apply resources to meet the specific needs of your school division to promote collective efficacy. And I want to harp on this last one for a second because there's going to be some people in the room who are going to get annoyed with me because I'm going to make you think about strategies before I talk about any of my own. And the reason for that is because when we tell you what we think, you try to make that fit into your division rather than getting your own thinking and asking what can I take from that and put it in there. So just know I am going to get to strategies that are actionable and that you can take, but I want you to already have some thinking when we do that, okay? So as you guys come in, I know some of you are joining, you will want to sit at a table with other people at it, just a heads up. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. I know some groups have been using the hand raise. I personally don't like the hand raise refocus. I want the thumbs up, and that's just gonna be my way. If you've been in a session that does this, this means I'm good to move forward. It means just end whatever sentence you're on. We're all adults. I'm not telling you to just be quiet, but end your thought, not your paragraph, and then let's come back together so we can move to the next piece. All right, so we'll just do that. When you see my thumb up, if you don't mind putting your thumb up, and that will tell us all to come back together. All right, let's go ahead and do our teammate introductions because it's really awkward if you have to sit there and talk about things without having a chance to know who's at your table. Some of you were beautifully already doing that, but let's go ahead and do it one more time. So if you could at your table, tell everyone your name, your home city and state or country if you're not from the United States, your current role, the favorite class you've ever taught, and why the heck are you here? So in one sentence, why are you at this session and not somewhere else at Learning Forward right now? So I'll let you all go ahead. I'll give you about a minute to go through the whole table. Go ahead. So if you guys don't mind coming back to me with a refocus signal, that would be awesome just to help others. Thank you. And if you haven't gotten it, you're going to have opportunities to be talking with these people throughout the entirety of the session. So don't worry, this isn't the one and done kind of thing here. So I want to give you a little bit of context since we're doing introductions, not a lot. I'm from the city of Manassas, which if you know anything about the DC area, it's about an hour southwest of DC. It is an interesting, weird world that I live in because I am in one of the most affluent areas in the entire country that has school divisions that rank in the top 15 in size, but I am in a city within a division that only has 7,700 students in it. What's more interesting is we're a one high school division. We have roughly 80% of our students on free and reduced lunch, and almost 50% of our students are English language learners. So we are a pocket of what I know a lot of us are struggling with, which is retaining teachers and getting new teachers to come to divisions when they can go to a lot of other places and likely make more money and can work with students who don't look like these students. And so I'm really passionate about that. And if you've noticed that blue dot, well, that's me. I'm a professional growth specialist in the city of Manassas. I've been in public education for almost 20 years. You can all gawk at this beautiful face, I know. I've been a few different roles. I was a former math teacher. I'm a PhD dropout. I'm a professor. I am an instructional coach, and currently I'm a professional growth specialist. And I will talk about what a professional growth specialist is here in a little while because it's part of how we reimagine supporting new teachers. All right, so let's do it. So why did we want to reimagine support in the city of Manassas? Well, I kind of already started hinting at it in that last slide, but let's talk about some of the data that showed why we needed to do this. So 4 years ago, right after COVID in 2021 to 2022, here's some interesting statistics about the state of Virginia. We went from having 2,800 teaching vacancies to over 3,500 teaching vacancies that year. In the city of Manassas, we went from 19 teaching vacancies to 25 teaching vacancies. Now that might not sound crazy to you, but that's over 6% of our teaching force was vacant, which is almost an entire elementary school staff. So it was pretty scary. Secondly, provisional licenses. So the state of Virginia was at 8.6%. We were at almost 10%. And what was even scarier was that almost 40% of our first-year teachers were on either a local license, a provisional license, or just didn't have a license and they were serving as a long-term sub. And lastly, the state of Virginia had almost 11,000 teachers leave the field of education while only 7,800 entered the field. So our gap was getting bigger and the qualified teachers we were getting fewer. And when we were looking at the teachers that we had entering our field, and I'd love to know if this is you as well, we were seeing a decrease, so give me a me too, a decrease in traditionally trained teachers. Yeah? We were seeing an increase in long-term subs that we were asking to fill teaching vacancies. We were seeing people who, and this is really relevant right now with the federal layoffs in Northern Virginia, of people who were teachers before, left the field, but now they need to come back because they need to make money for their family. And then lastly, career switchers. A lot of those federal employees are now in our school divisions with degrees not in teaching, but they now need a place to work. So we're seeing these changes, and it seems like a lot of us are as well. And now here's the thing. We know all of those teachers have a variety of needs. And those needs, not only are they getting greater, but they're getting more varied because we're having teachers who don't have traditional backgrounds. And so we used to be able to just say, okay, we'll have, these things, these supports in place, these instructional supports, and these traditionally trained teachers will come in, they'll take a couple bruises, and then they become beautifully well-trained teachers. Well, that's no longer the thing, right? So we have this plethora of needs across all these different pathways that we now need to consider for our new teachers. And so what I'd like for you to do is I'd like you to consider your school division or your school and the new teachers in them. And so we're going to do our first activity. And what I'd like you to do is I would like you to do this individually to start, and you'll have a chance to discuss it. But you're going to be working on sticky notes. So you should have a bunch of piles of sticky notes on your table. And what you're going to do is you're going to just write down the needs of your new teachers in your school division. And now I want to just give you some examples because I've done this activity and it can go different ways. I want you to be creative. I don't want you just thinking about instruction. I want you to think about any need your teachers have that you need to address, whether it's because they're immigrating from other countries, whether it's because they're new to your state, whatever it might be, okay? But then I also want you to be purposeful on how you write it. So I'm going to give you a couple examples. If you just write professional learning, crickets, way too vague. Now, if you say they need professional learning on the covariational relationships between two variables when two rates are changing at the same time, please don't, all right? So find the sweet spot. Maybe it's professional learning around curriculum, professional learning on content-based standards, whatever that might be. I'm not going to give too many examples because I want you to have open thinking. But I'm going to ask you to write as many as you can in 3 minutes. I know that's not enough time, but we'll get to go to the next. So in 3 minutes, however many stickies, but one need per sticky. All right, and we're doing this individually. What questions do you have before I let you all rock and roll? Okay, 3 minutes is on the clock. Wrap up that last sticky. And time, pencils down. Okay, so you just listed a bunch of needs. And we're going to come back to those in a second. You can just have them there for right now. All right, so what we noticed in Manassas City, we did this exact same activity with multiple different groups. We brought in new teachers themselves. We brought in people who support new teachers at the school level, the division level, and we had them write all these things, and they gave us so many sticky notes, we vomited. All right, so what we realized, though, as we processed all of that data was when we looked at those needs, they started having themes across those needs. And we started noticing that some of the things were very interrelated. And so we started wanting to have a framework to think about these needs because we knew if we just took all the sticky notes and we said, who's going to support this need, and who's going to support that need, and who's going to do that, we were just going to get a random collection of things that were not going to actually support our new teachers. And so we went to the literature, and I was fortunate to have some help with this. And we came across Tina Bugrin's Supporting Beginning Teachers book, who said that there's 4 types of needs for new teachers. They're emotional, physical, instructional, and institutional. And though we liked the framework, it didn't fit the needs that we were seeing exactly. And so we adapted this set of needs to a Manassas City framework, which is slightly different. And I would encourage you to think about this as well. Ours ended up becoming emotional, logistical, and instructional needs. And I want to just kind of give you a definition that we're going to work with today. My goal is not to have you leave anything today and say, I have to do what Manassas City did. I want you to think deeply about how you need to do what your division needs, but I'm going to show you examples using our own. Okay? So emotional needs are related to the mindset needed to manage stress, to promote connectedness and value, and to be efficacious. We know that if our teachers are efficacious, that's the #1 indicator that student achievement will go up. Logistical needs are related to the information needed to operate within the classroom, the school, and the school division, right? So what are all those different pieces of information that they're trying to get their executive functioning to go through the roof? And then lastly, the instructional needs, I think, are the ones that most of us are familiar with, right? Those are the skills and knowledge needed to support student learning. And a lot of divisions, we're going to talk about this, I think we incorrectly only ask this question: how do we meet the instructional needs of our new teachers? All right, and this is not an SEL lesson, so don't worry. If you're like, oh my gosh, I did sources of strength, please stop. All right, but we are going to think about this lens differently. So let's get into it. What I want you to now do, and we get our first chance to open up our sneak peeks, is number 4. Number 4 is just 4 headers. And now, depending on your table, you have 2 sets. You only need 1 set if you only have 1 team at your table. All right, but working with your team, you're going to take those headers, and feel free to pull them out now under the number 4. All right, and those headers are emotional, logistical, instructional, and other. Because again, I am not here to tell you that ours is the right way, so you might not have needs that fit these categories. And you can place those headers in the middle. And I love that you guys are doing that, so I'm going to give you a second to do it. Okay, and if you haven't already figured it out, which most of you probably have, is you're now going to, with your teammates, you're going to take turns looking at the needs you just created and deciding which category you think best fits or which one it's primarily underneath. And again, there is an other category because I'm not saying that we have everything perfect. All right, but if you're not sure where it should go, you can dialogue with your teammates to figure it out. But the idea is to place all of your needs. Now, there's a couple little tangents before you get started, so don't go yet. If a teammate has the same sticky note as you or a similar sticky note, you get to stack. So you just make one pile. We're trying to get unique needs, okay? But that does not count as your turn. And then you're going to keep going until all of your needs are placed, all right? If you're done early, before other groups are done, discuss how needs have changed for your division. And if it's helpful, here are the definitions again, so that you can kind of think through them, okay? So what questions do you have before you start categorizing? All right, let's categorize. So I'm gonna wait on us because yeah. Look, I know that some of us are not done placing our needs, and that's okay. This conversation could take 3 hours by itself. So I don't want to a lot of what you're going to see me do today is a little bit annoying, and I know that, which is I'm going to get you started, I'm going to get you in deep conversation, and then I'm going to say, stop thinking so well, all right? Because I want to show you these protocols, I want you to get to play with these protocols, and then I want you to think about how you're going to use those protocols. And if you don't get to finish your thinking, what I'm hoping is that you're going to be hungry by the end of this, that you're on the plane going, well, what was that? Instructional? Was that emotional? I don't know. And I want that to happen, okay? So the goal was to get some thinking on the table. What I thought was interesting, because I've done this activity a couple times before, was there weren't that many of them in the other category. A lot of you thought that most of your needs could fit into one of the three, which is awesome, because what I'm going to ask is that even if you don't think this framework fits you perfectly, is that we're going to play through the lens of emotional, logistical, and instructional, knowing that when you go home, those categories might need to change for you, okay? So what we noticed is we categorized these needs, we had these lists of needs, we had all this stuff, but then the money's made in how do we actually meet the needs of those teachers, right? And if your school division is anything like my school division, we came to find out that we don't have unlimited time and money with our new teachers. And so we had to start thinking about which needs do we need to prioritize, which needs, if we address them, might actually go across the spectrum of types of needs being addressed, which ones were interconnected, which ones are going to be our leverage points. And so we started looking at how divisions look at needs being met. And this is what I believe. This is not science, I'll be honest. This is a Dean graphic. Okay, so take it with a grain of salt. But this is how most divisions think needs of new teachers are met. We have a collection of really gifted people who were likely very successful teachers when they were younger, who are all working in tandem to address different subsets of needs, and they're all pulling their weight, and all the new teachers are sitting there like, oh, I'm so thankful that I have 27 different people supporting me in my needs. Right? But in reality, this is what I believe it actually looks like. And there's a lot that's going on in this graphic, but there's a couple things I want to draw your attention to. The first is that we have people who are likely addressing the same need of our new teachers. And they might be addressing very specific needs, and they might be addressing those needs from two different approaches and showing conflicting things to our new teachers. We have some needs that aren't being touched at all for our new teachers. But what I think is most important is how much we're asking of our mentors and colleagues, whether explicitly or implicitly, because that's just who the new teachers look to. They're in the hallways, they're their friends, that's what they want. And what I'd like to show is that there is some backing of this mentality, because if you look at, and I know you can't see this, the goal wasn't to read this, these are the 10 elements of an effective mentoring program that Bugren put in her book, all right? And what I want you to see is that of those 10 things, 7 of them are either directly on the shoulders of the mentor or it's implied that it should be on the mentor. And so if you think about your mentors, most of them are full-time teachers who have full caseloads, who are doing after-school activities with their students, who are being asked to do more administrative tasks for whatever reason than they've ever been asked to do before, who are seeing an uptick in off-task behavior by their students because we have seen that since the pandemic, our students are off the chain, all right? And we're doing all of that to our mentors and then asking them, hey, by the way, our teachers have more needs than they used to. So can you also address more of them? And I hope, as you're thinking about this, you might be saying to yourself, this is not sustainable. Right? We can't keep saying the mentors, if we just fix the mentor program and the mentors can have better understanding of how to meet the needs, that they'll be fine. Because this is a full-time job in itself. Right? We're asking our mentors to no longer be mentors who used to just be able to say, hey, here's the copier. Good luck. Now we're asking them to be instructional coaches. We're asking them to be trained in cognitive coaching theories and other types of coaching theories. Right? We're doing all of this to them and asking them to do that while they're full-time employees. And so we need to think differently, okay? And so we came up with a theory, and I'm going to show you this theory, and you're going to say, Dean, this is the most common sense theory I've ever seen in my life, and that's the best theory, right? It's the simple ones. So here's ours. If we better align the supports provided to new teachers based on their needs, then new teachers will have higher satisfaction with their job, and retention percentages will go up, right? We know if we feel needed, if we feel like our needs are met, we don't want to leave the place. We're afraid to leave places when we're happy, right? So it's a simple theory. But the question is, how do we actually reimagine things so that this is happening and we're not just doing the same thing over and over again and saying, but it used to work, right? And so, again, to come back to the needs really quickly, we can't address all of them at the same time. So what I want you to do really quickly is I want you to think about this theory. And I want you to think about all those needs you just listed, or the needs that you didn't get to discuss, or the needs that you didn't get to write down. It doesn't matter. They can be anywhere. They don't have to be on your table, okay? But what I want you to do is I want you to think about which ones, if they were addressed, would have the greatest impact on your new teachers and their students. And now, you're allowed to list, and here's the deal, because if everything's a priority, nothing's a priority. You're allowed to list up to 3 in each category. So you can have up to 3 emotional, up to 3 logistical, and up to 3 instructional. Now, if you think there are no emotional needs that your teachers need to have met, that's a wild take, but you can have 0 if you need to, okay? But the goal is no more than 3. And again, I'm going to ask you to do this on your own using now you can grab the graphic organizer that's under number 1. It's the half sheet of paper. Everyone should get their own, because what you'll learn is that even if you work in the same program as somebody you're sitting next to, you'll likely think the prioritization is different. So I want you to try this on your own first, and then you'll get to discuss. So you're going to just list which needs you think are going to have the highest impact on your new teachers if they were addressed, and their students, okay? If you finish that early, you can talk to your teammates about why those you think are the most critical for your teachers. But again, this is going to start individually, so just a couple of minutes to write down, and then as I start hearing conversation, that's how I'll know to move forward. All right, so go ahead and write down what you think are the most critical needs to meet. Okay, and so we're going to come back together, and I know I am being rude about taking deep thinking and cutting it short, but I hope that when you take these ideas back to your divisions, that you realize that this activity should not be done in 4 minutes. All right, so it's going to take, and there could be conversations with your team around which are prioritization, but I'm asking you all to look at them individually. And I did want to just kind of say, because I know we had some people showing up, and I did not post the slides yet. You will have access to the slides after the session, because I always fear when you post slides in advance. My slides are built in really weird ways with a lot of animations that it just would not be helpful to you. So I will be posting them as soon as this is over, PDF and PowerPoint version. So I promise you'll have them. So let's go into this. So you were just thinking about prioritizing the needs of your teachers, and you may not have gotten all of them down, but that's okay. You're going to keep getting to wrestle. Every time I give you time to think with your teammates, you're welcome to come back to any of the organizers you've already turned over, okay? So what we noticed in Manassas City is that we needed to prioritize within each of these buckets, emotional, logistical, and instructional, but then we also needed to think about how do we prioritize the buckets themselves. And we thought we were being really creative because we said, hey, everyone thinks about instructional needs, and I know there's SEL stuff, but are we really addressing the emotional and logistical needs of our teachers? And we're like, we're so smart, we're going to make millions of dollars. And then we went to the research and we realized, Maslow said that 75 years ago, right? So if we don't meet the basic human needs of our teachers, then we can never ask them to self-actualize, to ever be reflective practitioners, to ever be anything we need them to be, right? We have to meet these needs. And so our natural conclusion when we started this work 4 years ago was, well, here's a simple model. Let's just do this. We'll meet their emotional, logistical needs first. We'll do everything we can to show them that they're loved, a part of our community, that we want them to be here. And then when they feel really happy, then we'll start talking to them about instruction. And it worked really well in the sense of all of our teachers were really happy. What didn't happen was our students didn't get any better instruction because all we did was tell them about how it's okay that they're new, that they're this, and gave them excuses. And some of them could never get to this instructional side. And so we went back to the drawing board after that and we said, we know we can't not address emotional and logistical needs. We need to do something slightly differently. And so we got really creative and watch this. We made it a two-way arrow, right? And so the idea was, hey, when we first see you, we're going to love on you. And then when we first see you in your classroom, we're going to give you some tips that are going to help you to be really good at teaching. And then we're going to go back and check on you and make sure you're okay. And we went back and forth. And what we realized is that they didn't feel supported because we weren't actually invested in them because we were trying to get here. And then when we did this, they didn't believe that we were there to help them, so then they weren't really here. This was compliant. And so we were going back and forth, and nothing was actually changing in them. And so that landed us at our third and our current prioritization and how we do this, which looks a little bit more like this. So we still harp on, and I'm going to show you how we do this through different types of things that we're doing, on emotional and logistical needs throughout the entirety of like the first semester that we're working with them. But we're at the same time being very thoughtful around what instructional practices do we want to start cultivating in them from the very beginning so that it's combined. And then because we've built up a lot of trust with our teachers, we can then shift the focus later in the year to saying, okay, remember those nuggets we were talking about? Let's actually start thinking deeply about them. And we're still going to care about you, and we're going to still talk about why you're being successful despite you not feeling like you're being successful at times. And we're going to support you this way, but we're really going to start thinking about this instruction. Right? And now what I belabor this a lot, is that this is our current thinking. We're not saying it is the framework. If it was the framework, I would be selling books across the world. I wouldn't need to be here talking to you, right? I would just be a consultant making millions of dollars. But this is our current framework. So no matter which framework you choose in your division to follow, I think there's a lot of success in this, but there's different frameworks that are already in the research that you can think about, or there's ones that you guys can start wrestling with as you look at your needs. What's really important is that there's a couple things that we have to make sure we're doing. And the first of those things is that we have to actually hold true to the fact that less is more. I know that sounds ridiculous, but how many different priorities are we putting on our new teachers at any given time? When do we, in mentoring and induction, work with our curriculum specialists to make sure that the pedagogical practices that we want our teachers to do are also the same ones that they're telling them to work on in their own curriculum? When do we do it in our CLTs? When are we actually thinking about what are the priorities we need them to be doing? All right. The second one is, you can't spell development without E and L, right? So you can't grow your teachers, let me rephrase, you can grow your teachers instructionally, but if you do not develop them through their emotional and logistical needs, you'll put a lot of money in them and then they will leave. Because if they don't have their basic needs met, it does not matter how good of a teacher they become because they won't be feeling loved and a sense of belonging. And we know, the research shows us, that if you don't feel like you're in a supportive and collaborative environment, you are way more likely to leave your school division. The third is incremental growth. Every division, I would guess, has a set of professional standards that their teachers are evaluated on. Most of our teachers are not anywhere close to actually meeting those standards, right? And so we know we need to get them there. We can't lower our expectations of our teachers, but we also can't wait to celebrate them until they hit the standard. So we need to be thoughtful around what does it look like if our teacher was going from ineffective to approaching, from approaching to proficient in each standard, and how does that tie back into our priorities so that when they're doing those things, we can then be very thoughtful around how we celebrate them so that they continue on the path towards proficiency at their standards. And then lastly, we need to think about how we repurpose and reallocate. And we're talking about reimagining. So this is the same thing. Repurpose and reallocate is my synonym for reimagine, okay? When we're thinking about this, we don't get new money to do more things. The answer is not, if only we had one more instructional coach, we would be fine, right? So we need to think about what we're doing with the people we have, with the resources we have, with the time we have, and how do we reallocate that so that we're better supporting the needs of our teachers based on what we think are our priorities. All right. And so we're going to do the next piece of this, which is going to get really interesting because we're going to take these ideas, these principles, And now I want you to start thinking about your program itself. And so what we're going to do is we have what's called creating a future reality. So if everyone could grab the big piece of paper, which is number 2, right? The legal paper, which let me tell you, carrying 600 pages on an airplane was really a lot of fun. So you guys better appreciate these legal papers. All right. So on this graphic organizer, the first thing I want you to focus on is where it says which program or team is your focus for today. Now, if you're in mentoring and induction, you might just say you're mentoring an induction program. That's fine. But if you're someone in a different position, I want you to just keep in mind that we're thinking about new teachers today. You can use this protocol with any team. But today I want you to think about a program or team that has a focus with new teachers, okay? So go ahead, I'll give you about 20 seconds, just think about what team you want and write it down. Or program, excuse me. And as you're filling that in, what I hope you guys will notice is that we're pretty much doing a protocol that takes project management and makes it way simpler. Right? Continuous improvement plans, any of those documents that have the 67 action steps and blah, 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 blah. What I want to do is make it simple. So then when you go to write your action plans, you already know you're thinking. All right? So now, here's where I get like super excited for myself. This is probably the best thing I've ever done in my life. So if you could fold on those dotted lines, and if you're type A like me, there's even one on the edge so that when you fold it, there's no weird overlap, and you should get a 3-column piece of paper that's exactly half the length of your current graphic organizer. And some of you are like, wow, this is worth going to this session just for this foldable, and I appreciate you. All right. And so now if you folded it correctly, here's your pop quiz, well, not pop quiz, here's your formative check. It should be future reality on the left, current in the middle, and now strategies on the far right. Okay? And so when you fold it up, I want you to look at that side, the side that we labeled. And this is where we're going to start doing some work around your program. So you're keeping in mind the needs you were just prioritizing. I'm going to let you, I hear a lot of papers folding still. I know this is, it's like, Dean, I didn't pass art class. That's why I got into this. All right, so what I'm going to ask of you is we're going to do this in 2 parts, but I'm not going to overly structure it. The first part is I'd like you to work on the first 2 columns, the future reality and your current. And I'm going to ask you to do this in a very specific way. I would like you to complete, or at least start working through, spend some time on your future reality, and I'm going to explain what that means, before you go to current. Because if you think about where you are right now, a lot of times you get stuck and be like, well, I can't change that, I can't influence that, I can't do that, I can't. I don't want you to think that. I don't want you to make me a science fiction fantasy novel in your future reality. But I want you to think about what is it that would make your program be successful? What do you need in your program that you would feel like you are meeting those prioritized needs that you were just talking about? So I'll give you some examples. So for me, in my division, one of the things that we're working on is making one-to-one mentor pairings. So again, remember thinking about trying to reduce the tasks of our mentors. Well, currently, due to whatever reasons we have, whether it be recruitment or whatnot, we don't have all one-to-one pairings. But that's my goal. All right, and then once I've done all my goals, I'm going to go over to current and I'm going to write, where am I right now? So right now, most of my mentors, especially at my middle school, have 2 or more mentees. All right? So we're just doing a correspondence. Here's where I want to be, here's where I am if I'm being real with myself. And again, this doesn't have to be something you have to control. It might be, you might need to have conversations after today. But the idea is, where do I want my program to be and where am I right now? All right? Now, after you've had some time to think about that individually, then I'm going to let you work with your team to just start spitballing and strategizing. You might choose to continue working independently, and that's fine, or you can start talking with your tables. Now, I want to just tell you guys, especially those of you who came in a little bit late, I promise I'm going to show you strategies that we're doing in Manassas City after this, but I want you to have some time to think about what strategies might work for you in your division right now based on the resources you have. All right? So for instance, here's a simple one for me, and again, I'm being ridiculous on purpose because I don't want to give away what you should be thinking about. I'm going to do mail merges for mentor recruitment. That's a strategy I'm going to do because I know if they feel like it's personalized to them, they might be more likely to volunteer to be a mentor than if I just send out "we need mentors" email. And you can have as many strategies as you'd like in this 3rd column. Right? So what questions do you have about the graphic organizer before we start the first part, which is just working on the future reality? Okay, so again, just independent time to start, 5 minutes to work on your future reality and your current. Right? I'll be walking around if you have questions. Okay, and I still have a minute on my silent time, but if you'd like to start talking through strategies with your tables, feel free. I see some people are already ready to go into that route. So at this point, I'll open it up. You can continue to work independently, or you can start working with your teammates just to start talking through what might be some strategies you've tried or things that are working for you that help kind of bridge the gap between your current and your future. Right. So we're going to come back together, and I'm going to get you guys back in your groups in a second. So what I know most of you guys were discussing was, Dean, this foldable is cool, but how could you make it cooler? And so we're going to talk about that. All right, so thank you for that. I was walking around, I saw already a lot of strategies listed, which is awesome because that means that my strategies are relevant. You've already got the thinking, and that's what I wanted you to realize. All right, so if you could open up your graphic organizer back so that it's a full sheet of legal paper. And now, if you could add into those headers that are currently empty, if you haven't figured it out, they're going to be emotional, logistical, and instructional. And now, I know that didn't make the foldable any cooler, so let's make it cooler. If you steal your prioritizing needs graphic organizer that I asked you to work on earlier, and you want to be super impressed, place it directly on top of those 3 columns, and those column widths should be exactly the same so that you have a big one-pager that shows we need to keep this in perspective when we're thinking about the needs of our new teachers. Ooh. And if you could give me my session survey feedback now, that would be awesome. Okay. Okay, now the reason why I did this, and I saw some of you all naturally doing it, you had this paper out, is what I'd like to give you some time to do, and you can just continue those conversations you were having. This doesn't need to go back to independent time, but I want you to be looking at these needs again. And I want you to be asking yourself, if I bridged from my current reality to my future reality using these strategies, or even just if I bridged without even, I'm like, I don't have a strategy yet, but if I was to bridge from the left to the right, how would it be addressing the needs that I said are most critical to my new teachers? And what I'm hoping is you'll start refining some thinking, and the most powerful strategies, you'll be like, well, that strategy actually goes across all of them. So I want you to be thinking about how it's met. And I'm not going to tell you how to fill in these columns. Some teachers I've done this, or excuse me, some leaders I've done this with have just used check marks. Some have said, oh, this addresses number 1. Some have written themselves note. Some have continued to write strategies. Whatever way you want to do it, I'm not going to try and say, this is what I need you to do right now. All right? I want this to be time for you to think and wrestle. So again, just discussing with your teammates, continuing that conversation for a few more minutes, thinking about how what you're writing down addresses these needs, and then refining accordingly. Okay? Great. Go ahead and keep working with your tables. So as I was walking around and I was looking at that, I noticed a lot of the emotional, logistical, and instructional columns weren't getting filled in, and that's exactly what I was kind of hoping would happen, because many of you are already wrestling with that when you're writing in your strategies. And that's, when you're doing this protocol, if you choose to take this protocol back to your team or anything like that, you might structure it slightly differently and address those emotional, logistical, and instructional pieces before you start talking about strategies. And so what I want to do now, we're already over halfway done, is I want to shift gears and talk about a little bit about what Manassas City has done to reimagine, to do things differently, not to just do more of the same. And then I'm going to give you time to use those ideas to wrestle with how you might adapt for yourself. So let me get through there. All right, here's where we focus. I'm going to give it in 2 parts. One side of this is about the human resources side of thing, how we've actually repurposed and reallocated our people. And the other half is going to be strategies that our people are doing with our new teachers. So the first part is, this is again, to come back to the graphic, this is how many divisions appear to be supporting their new teachers. All right? And what we did, and this again, this is a decision we made, is we did not add any new money to the budget, is we took our content coaches, our content-based coaches, so our math coaches, our reading coaches, those individuals, and we actually decided to repurpose them into 3 new roles. And those roles, again, same positions, just different roles. We're becoming instructional facilitators, support teachers, and professional growth specialists. And your division, again, if this is something you're like, Dean, we can't repurpose, that's okay. I'm going to talk about why these roles kind of change what you're thinking about, but I wanted to show you that we did both of these things. We didn't just do more of the same. We said, how can we do it differently? And so when we did that, I want you to kind of take in what you're seeing as that, and here's what the graphic becomes in terms of how, in our reality, we support our new teachers. All right, and there's a lot going on in this slide, but what I want you to kind of note is a few things that happened, and the most important one is this. Now, a lot of our colleagues and mentors of our new teachers still invest a lot of time and energy into the new teachers because they're teachers. They love people. They want the kids to be successful, but we're asking less of them. We're really focusing, trying to bring colleagues and mentors back to handling logistical needs. How do you operate within your classroom? How do you operate within your school? How do you operate within the division? What is the evaluation process? What does it mean to be evaluated? What should I be doing right now to be ready for that? So really trying to focus there. And because we've reduced those bubbles, we needed to find different ways. All right? So the first one is our support teachers. And I'm not going to go through really in depth on what these roles are because your division may look different. But support teachers, you'll notice their bubble is small because they're student facing. So they are working with our teachers, our new teachers, but they are taking data and they're looking at which students are in need of more extreme interventions. And then they're working with those students in really coordinated ways to help them get to grade level, which then supports our new teachers because our new teachers don't have to worry about differentiating so far. Our instructional facilitators, this is a role that most divisions have never even considered. These are individuals who actually are full-time school-based employees. We actually have one in the room. And their job is to focus on our collaborative learning teams within the school. And they are working on helping them learn how to plan, how to make sure that they're aligned to the standards, how to make sure they're hitting the standards. And they're doing that as their full-time job. So they're meeting with every different team, which again, tangentially, is going to be supporting the new teachers because the teachers are now learning the planning process through an individual whose full-time job is to do that. And then you'll notice the big bubble, not to brag, is me. All right? And the reason why that's the big bubble is not because I'm the best, it's because my time and energy is now invested in new teachers. And so some divisions have what they call induction coaches who are focused on that. That's similar to what we're doing. And so our professional growth specialists, we only have 4 of them in the entire division. So across 9 schools, I have 4 schools assigned to me. But what is a professional growth specialist? So a professional growth specialist I see as a hybrid role. The first part is that they're now filling in as what we've been asking a lot of our mentors to do. So they are trying to be a go-to shop for our new teachers and their needs. So we're building relationships with every new teacher in our division in hopes of that they will trust us with the things that they need to be successful in their classrooms. The second is that we're being a thought partner. So that might look different depending on it, but my goal as a professional growth specialist is that my teachers feel comfortable to think with me around stuff and that they're not afraid that they don't have the language or the skills yet, right? And so how do we, what I like to say is educamify. Like, how do we take the stuff they're thinking about and make it into the education jargon that they actually intuitively already know? That's where we're kind of really thought partnering. And then the more traditional role is we're also instructional coaches. So we are working with our first-year teachers in their classrooms around pedagogy. We are not content specific. And that, again, is coming back to that less is more. So what are the basic instructional tools we need every teacher to have to be successful? And then how does it apply to different curricula? All right, and so that's what a professional growth specialist is in a nutshell. And you might be saying to yourself, well, cool, Dan, that's neat. I can't do that. And that's true. Maybe you can or you can't. But what I hope you will think about is how could you reallocate or repurpose roles you do have so that more of this can be done with your new teachers specifically. And so what does that accomplish for us? I just want to show you some data. I'm not going to go and brag or do anything, but we've been doing this for 3 years. This is our 4th year doing it. We ask our new teachers 3 different times each year anonymously. We have over 80% of our new teachers respond to the survey anonymously every time we give it. I work with grades 5 through 12, so this is just my data, but we have similar data across the division. I didn't ask for the permission to share it because this was sufficient. All right, so here are some statements we say about emotional, logistical, and instructional needs, and here's our data. I feel supported by my PGS, I feel I can be myself around my PGS, and I feel I am becoming a better educator because of my PGS. And this is over 30 new teachers that I support in their first year, and this is the average data on those survey responses, agree or strongly agree. Now, that's all cool, and it's like, yeah, whatever, and I'm going to talk about how we're doing this in a second, but I think what's more impactful is we have really good feelings in our classroom, but also how do they feel about their division? And here's our data of our first-year teachers. I am content with my job in Manassas City. We've stayed over 90% in our first-year teachers every time we've given the survey in the last 3 years since we've made this transition. When I took on this role, our first-year teacher turnover rate was at almost 40%. So the data shows that what we're doing is working. So what the heck are we doing? And that's where we're going to talk about some resources, and then I'm going to give you some time to look at some resources, and then I'm going to let you refine some thinking, have discussions, and ask me questions about things that might be applicable to your division. So we're going to break this into 3 categories. But keeping in mind, sorry, I forgot this slide was here. Keeping in mind that everything I'm about to show you was following this model. We did not add any money to our budget to do any of the things that I'm about to show you. All right, so let's do it. First off, let's talk about emotional. Oh, sorry, and sticky notes. See, this is why I have reminders. If you have questions about resources as you're seeing them, feel free to write them on sticky notes, put them on the parking lot, because I'm going to be going fast, because my goal is to not sit and get you with strategies that I've done. I want to give you time to think about how to use those strategies for yourself. All right, so let's do it. Emotional. If we think about emotional needs of teachers, they really fall into two big categories. The first is we have to have trusting relationships with our new teachers. If we haven't built a trusting relationship with our teachers, they're never going to actually want to learn with us because they're afraid that you might be judging them or you might be doing things that are not in their best interest. The second is we have to build a community. We talked about this earlier. Teachers who work in a collaborative and supportive community are more likely to stay in their jobs. So what are some things we've done to foster both of these? Well, in trusting relationships, here are some easy, everything I'm going to show you I hope is easy wins. The first is every first-year teacher in our division gets what's called a meet and greet. Super simple. We go in, we let them schedule it in the first 2 weeks that they're there. It is a one-on-one conversation without an agenda, without notes, without anything. It is purely to get to know that person as an individual. That's it. After we have those meetings, because we've learned so much about them, we go back and we start building our own priority list based on what we believe their needs might be. So what level of support they might need based on their background, but also just what are things that we should remember about them so that when we go back to talk to them, we have things that we can connect with them on that are not about instruction. Simple, easy. I write 3 minutes worth of notes after I have a meeting with the teacher. I keep that track in my mind, and now I've got a relationship that I can start building upon because I already know things about them. Second, all hands on deck mentality. Now, anyone who's an instructional coach in the room or has worked with instructional coaches knows the number one rule is you're not allowed to be a resource provider as an instructional coach. You are not there to tell them what to do. You are there to support them in their thinking. With that said, the first 2 weeks of school, if you need a copy, I will sprint to that copier for you, right? I don't care what you need. I will clean up the floors. I will pick up the trash. I will do whatever. And I'm in those classrooms as a partner because I want them to feel that way. And hand on hand with that is we do what's called no-notes visits. A lot of us want to get to those instructional needs, and we want to start building those instructional capacities of our teachers from day one. And we have learned that those teachers are not ready for that on day one because they are so overloaded with what the heck is day one. So we do what we call no-notes visits. We come in, we act as if we are a co-teacher with that teacher. We remind them about the things they're trying to accomplish, and we're just there as a friend. Afterwards, we send them thank you notes. Thank you for being willing on your first day of school for letting me come in your classroom. I could tell you already did this stuff that we talked about. It's awesome to see. But there is no instructional critiquing. There is no instructional feedback. There is nothing. It's just a nice thank you. It's easy. It takes 10 minutes. I got a template. I got 7 sentences. I copy paste which ones are most relevant to that teacher. I put it in their mailbox. I'm done. You want to talk about a teacher feeling loved? I mean, it's so easy. Holy crap, I'm already doing good things. Okay? On the other side of that about building community, guys, I'm going to break the world into, your mind's going to be blown by the things I'm going to tell you. Watch this. First one. Do team builders, right? Like we trickle down effect. We don't have time from the superintendent meeting to do things. We got to get through the list. We don't have time at the faculty meeting. We got a bulleted list. We don't have time to do this with our teachers because we got all this stuff we need to cover. And then we say, oh, well, do that with your students, right? We have to break the system. So team builders, they can be anything. They don't have to be crazy, whatever. I'm going to show you 2 if they work. Let's find out. Of silly. They're just silly, but they get people laughing. And what we know is that when people start laughing, they're willing to talk. And when they're willing to talk, they're willing to be vulnerable. And when they're willing to be vulnerable, they can grow. So here's 2 silly ones. This first one is called voiceless leader. The person in the middle is trying to figure out who's the dance leader. Everybody else is copying the dance moves of the person that's doing the ridiculousness. Everyone in that room is laughing. This one's my favorite of all time. This is just rock, paper, scissors. But if you lose, you have to cheer for the person who beat you. Right? And so this is our boys Joe and Tito who are facing off for the championship. I want you to know this is the championship. And Joe thought he was going to get it, and he didn't. Tito is our current reigning rock, paper, scissors champion. And now 30 teachers call him champ instead of Tito. Silly. It's silly. It took 5 minutes. All right? And on the other side of that is social events. Think about for yourselves. When's the last time you hosted a non-required event for new teachers to build a community amongst themselves in a non-threatening, non-academic way off campus? Right? We can do this without needing a budget. We don't have to pay things. If we've built trusting relationships and we show them that we care about them, they're thirsty to get to know other people. So we always try to do at least 3 non-required, optional social events that don't cost us any money. We just work with our local venues. They give us the space, and then there's no agendas. So we always do what we call welcome home. Within the first month of school, we do an event. We invite every new teacher, years 1 through 3, to it, and they show up. We had over 60 new teachers come to our welcome home event this year. We only have 120 new teachers. It was optional. We do something in the middle of the year, around the holidays, and then we do something at the end of the year to celebrate all the growth they've had. Again, we're not paying for any of this. We're just asking for space, and then we show up and we might make some silly little games that they can play, or bingo or whatever, and then they're just there to socialize and let them build their community across first-year teachers. Right? So here's a list of ways. Oh, here's some pictures of some of the more fun things that we've done over the last couple of years in terms of team builders. But here's some ways that you can bring social events and team building into your division without having to do a ton. Here's just some ideas. The light blue at the top are things that our teachers are expected to come to. So our new teacher academy, our welcome week, our team meetings. The bottom are things that we just work with local people to allow us to use their space, and then we do it. We've done trivia, we've done gift exchanges, we've done social events, we've done ice cream, we've done putt-putt. We have a putt-putt golf course in our division right next to central office. Riddle me that one, that's a weird one, but we have one. All right, which if you knew where I'm at, that doesn't make any sense. But we have it. So we do putt-putt every year. I am the reigning putt-putt champion. I shot a 48, thank you. All right, so just some ideas about, you don't need to do this. What makes sense in your school division? How could you do this and not have to add anything to your budget? Okay, so really quickly, what I'd like to do is give you a chance to process, because I've been talking for way too long. With a shoulder partner, just what's one new thought you're having around meeting the emotional needs of your new teachers? Just with an elbow partner, just name out one thing, and then the other person share. Close up that one thought. Hopefully you're just working with an elbow partner. If we're trying to do the table, this might take way too long. Let's go ahead and refocus. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to go through a couple of different strategies for logistical. Again, my goal is not to say you should do these strategies. My goal is to get you thinking about what strategies might make sense for your division. All right. I know that if you try to take something someone tells you to do and just do it, and when it doesn't work, you'll say, well, Dean doesn't get it. I don't care what Dean does. I want you to think about what you should be doing. And I'm just trying to show you some examples of each type of need to show you that you can do this in easy ways. All right. So let's go to logistical really quickly. And I'm also like itchy because sit and get is like my least. I'm like sweating profusely up here because that was like 7 minutes of me talking and I hate it. So sorry if I talk too fast, but I just want to get to the you talking part. So logistical. This is weirdly, I'm going to show you something that I don't know how this was such a game changer, but it completely changed our work with new teachers, and it was so simple. So we're not trying to do the logistics for our new teachers. We're trying to make it so that their logistical needs are met as easily as possible. The first one is super easy to do, and it just changed our worlds. We did checklists. Now this sounds crazy, but I'm talking about checklists around logistical needs. Think about how many things your new teachers need to know in the first couple of weeks of school that are not related to instruction, right? So here's our list. I know where my classroom's located. I have my employee ID. I have my badge. I have my keys. I have my laptop. And what we do is on our first day that our new teachers report is every school has a designated person who's going to run a session that they get to build where their goal is that every new teacher has a yes for all of these check marks. And then any no's, that central person takes those, puts them into a spreadsheet that is shared with every division leader related to these logistical needs, and they're addressed by the end of the day. So that when we start working with our new teachers, they're not asking, but I haven't seen my classroom, but I don't have my keys, but I don't have this, right? We know if they have logistical things taking up their bandwidth, they can't do other things. And by doing this, we took what was really a crapshoot of the first 3 days that we had our new teachers, and we handled it all in 3 hours. And it forced accountability across all of our departments because we know the start of the school year is really stressful for everyone. But things slip through the cracks. And we're hiring teachers the morning that they're reporting. So this helps us make sure that no one slips through the cracks on the first day that we have them. And it's just been super easy. It's a super easy thing. And again, we talked to everyone in the division about what do the teachers need, and that's how we created this list. What does IT think they need? What does HR think they need? What does the school administrator think they need? And we just made a standardized list that every school uses. The second is calendars. I think you guys probably already do this, but I want to shift your thinking a little bit. Teachers are so tired of being on their computers. We're tired of being on our computers. We're tired of the students being on the computers. The teachers are tired of being on their computers. So we set a calendar before the year starts. It's shared electronically through Outlook invites, but we make one-pager, color-coded calendars with time, location, and date for all of our new teachers based on what level they're at, and we put it in their mailbox on the first day of school. Every new teacher's classroom I go to has this taped to the wall. You know what they don't have? The reminders turned on their Outlook invites. Right? Why do I need to look at Outlook? I'm going to teach, and then I'm going to go home. Right? So this just keeps it straight. They check it off. It becomes a checklist for them. They know where they are, and we have it like that. Right? Third, scheduling tools. If you are working with teachers, they have a million things to do. You have a million things to do. Find what scheduling tool works for you. All right, no teacher feels safe if you put a class visit on their calendar for them. Oh, why is she coming? Oh, why is he coming? Oh, I need to think about this. But if you say, hey, here's when I'm available, tell me when in an email, now we have a back and forth that takes too much logistical time. Scheduling tool, you can use whichever one you want, but you let them book the time they want you to come, and then you base it off your availability, and now they have the voice and choice. You can put the focus on the scheduling tool. What do you want to focus on? It can be related to whatever you need, and then now it's on the calendars for both of you, and you don't have to spend a bunch of time saying, well, I'm free during third block. I'm free at 9 a.m. I'm free at this. All right, so we use Google. If you don't know this, Google has an appointment scheduler built into it that is awesome. You can make recurring days. You can block off times. You can do all sorts of stuff, but there's a ton of these tools. So I'm not here to tell you to use Google. I'm not paid by them, weirdly. All right, but whatever works for you. And then lastly, resource organization. How do you make it easier for them? Marketing 101 says the more clicks, if someone has to click more than 3 times, they are less likely to engage in that thing. So how do we make it easier for them? So for instance, it might be as simple as making a folder that is a hyperlink in their bookmarks that when they click it, they get access to every resource that you talked about. It might be having a website where the buttons are exactly related to your strategic priorities, and when they click that button, it takes them to it, and it's the home page on their computer. It can be whatever way you want, but what mentality you should have is the more clicks, the less likely it is that they'll engage. Pro tip, if you have something you want to send them in an email and it's a PDF of something that's pretty, screenshot, insert. Don't make them click the attachment. I'm telling you, you will see the engagement go up, and your students will have the things, your teachers will have the things they need more easily available to them. Okay? So I know that was fast, but I want you to go back because, again, I want you to think about it. So what's one part of this that changes your thinking around how you're addressing logistical needs for your teachers? What's something you might be able to adapt, talk to a shoulder partner about? What might you be able to adapt and use in your division? What's a new thought? Go ahead. Okay, and so I'm going to go ahead and ask us to refocus, please. If you could come back to me, please. We're going to do one more chunk. It's the more obvious chunk, but I'm hopefully going to give you some different thinking around instructional needs that will allow you to really wrestle with how these things are related and how you can prioritize within these categories. So hopefully you're already starting to realize that when we think about it through the lens of these types of needs, we start seeing that, oh my gosh, there's a lot of them, and there's things that we as experts are very blind to that our new teachers likely need. I'll give you an example. I have teachers in my division who have never made a PowerPoint in their lives. And now I'm expecting them to stand in front of a group of students and understand how to create an effective lesson plan, right? So let's talk about a little bit of how we might think about instructional needs a little bit differently as well. So there's 2 big things I think all of us as mentoring and induction people might be thinking about. First is our mentoring and induction program. Ours is called Teacher Education and Mentor, the team program. And we're going to talk about some components of that and how it relates to all of the needs, but also their instructional needs specifically. And then the second is instructional coaching. And now this is, again, we're talking about reimagining things. In a lot of divisions, these are 2 different entities. I would push you, if you can't combine them, to think about how do you make them more cohesive. All right, and as someone who's likely in this program, you might start by thinking about what are some maybe look-fors or priorities that we're doing in our program that we can then relate to our instructional coaches as, hey, when you're working with new teachers, can we try to, what can we work around this? Okay, and so for us, this is lucky because this is one and the same. All right, so, and that's something that I would really push to think about. How can we make this more cohesive? So let's start with team. So the team program is our mentoring and education program. I'm going to give you all, as part of the resources, our handbook, our framework, how all of that works. So I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty of what does our team program look like. I'm just going to talk about some components that I think are really useful when you're in any induction program. So the first thing that I want is, excuse me, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. What we realized when we looked at our team program 4 years ago is that we had no one with the bandwidth or time to really invest in this program. So what it actually became was a mentor pairing program. And we had some online Schoology videos that we asked our mentors to do that was supposed to then make them prepared to take on all of the needs of our new teachers. The end. We did it. When we started restructuring, we realized that we need to be very, very thoughtful around our team program. And so we came up with a 3-phase approach to how we build everything within our program. And I'd push you to think about what this might be for you. You might already have some of these pieces, but if you don't, let's think about it. So the first one, this is going to sound weird, but it's the most important, is you need to establish a mantra. Catchphrase, mantra, whatever. Here's ours. Be a warm demander. If you're not familiar with this literature, it's in your resource packet that you'll get to see in a minute. There are different types of teachers. And in Manassas City, what we tell our teachers is, we want you to be a warm demander. That's our mantra. We are going to be warm demanders. And there's actually like some really beautiful literature on it, yes. And you'll have access to it in just a minute. So the warm demander idea is that it's not relationships then rigor, it's not rigor then relationships, it's relationships and rigor. Okay? And that's the mentality we want them to take. But by calling it something different, by not using educational jargon, we can frame everything we do through this lens, and they've had a whole life to understand what it means to be demanding, what it means to be warm to somebody. The next thing that we do in our program is that we align to the mantra. Anything that we do in the team program, we have to be able to say embodies being a warm demander. What do we do as our team program? And again, I'm not here to tell you to do my program, I'm here to tell you to think about it, is we talk about what it is to be proactive in your classroom management. That is what our team program is focused on. And what we really argue is that it's these components, norms and expectations, procedures, building a classroom community, instructional delivery, and then you'll notice the very small black thing of discipline, because discipline is not proactive. And so we're not here to teach you how to be a disciplinarian. We are teaching you how to prevent discipline from needing to happen. Right? And so everything we do is through these buckets, and they're always asked back to, how do we do this as a warm demander? So what does it mean to have norms and expectations as a warm demander? What should you have in place? What does it mean to have procedures that are being warm and demanding? And then because of that, it's one idea. We're talking about a lot of things, but it's always coming back to one idea, and then they start framing their thinking through that idea. And then lastly, and this is the hard part in most divisions, because again, you just told me your team program and your instructional coaching programs are likely separate, which then also probably means that everything related to instruction is not in the team program, your induction program, but we need to find a way to connect your division initiatives to the mantra. Right? So we can't say that this is what we believe for our new teachers and then say, and then there's also this, and then there's also this. So here are the actual strategic priorities in Manassas City, and I'm going to show you how we connect these, because we didn't work with the division leaders to build these initiatives, but now we're expected to make sure that we're embodying those. So the first is an inclusive and effective classroom environment. So we build that up. We show them that's related to how we set norms and expectations and procedures so that all students have a voice, so that all students are included, so that all students are expected to attain at high levels. Right? So we connect this idea about co-teaching, inclusive practices through that lens. We also have a big emphasis on cooperative learning. A lot of people say we want our students to work together. We actually have an initiative where we are focusing on how do we do cooperative learning in our classrooms, which then connects to how do we build a classroom community, right? Because when we want our students to work together, they have to be willing to laugh together, they have to be willing to talk together, they have to be willing to be vulnerable together, and that's all through building a classroom community. And then lastly, instructional delivery. One of our big focuses is co-teaching. If you remember from the start, 50% of our students are English language learners. So that means almost every one of our teachers is working in a co-teaching setting in some way, shape, or form. So what are instructional delivery methods that will allow you to support that co-teaching model? And then how do we do that through the lens of a warm demander? So we connect our division initiatives back to this, which then goes back to this. And what that's done is it allows us as the leaders, when we're sitting down to have conversations with our teams and with our groups, we can use this as our litmus test. Where does it fit? How does it fit? How do we talk about this in this lens? And if we can't, then we need to go back and redesign. And so the reason I bring this up is because if you are being honest with yourself about your mentoring and induction program, and you don't have these things in place, you likely have a collection of things. And no one likes clutter, right? A teacher cannot connect the dots for you. Oh, I'm teaching you about assessment today. Oh, I'm teaching you about rubrics today. Oh, I'm teaching you about co-teaching today. I'm teaching you this today. I'm teaching you this today, because you need all these skills. But a good teacher doesn't see those as a bunch of skills. They see them as a collected whole that is around being a warm demander, right? So we have to be thoughtful around how it's not a collection of things, but it's actually embodying the mantra we want them to have in our classrooms. So there's three big parts to the team program. The first is, and I don't know if everyone in the room has one of these, but if you don't, I would advise it. We have what's called our New Teacher Academy. And again, I'm not going to walk through. I'm actually going to give you the entire written out calendar so you can take it and look at it and see what might work for you. But what I do want you to see is, here is, based on emotional, logistical, and instructional needs, how our 4-day New Teacher Academy looks. And just take a look at the color coding. That's really what I want you to see. If we don't meet the emotional and logistical needs of our teachers, they don't care about any of this stuff, right? And so if you notice, our blues, which are our instructional, are classroom basics, scavenger hunt for classroom basics, cooperative learning, day one, and then proactive classroom management. These are, if you remember our framework, instructional has to have priorities, and those are the ones we focus on. And we focus on these ones because they will help meet the basic needs they need in their classroom. Right? It'll come back to that proactive classroom management, which comes back to being a warm demander. So all of this is done through the lens of being a warm demander, and then we can sprinkle in our basics. And again, you might have different priorities. So I'm not saying do cooperative learning day one at your new teacher academy, but I would think about what are the things you need them to know how to do, and how do you connect it to building community so that when they're doing it, so for instance, our scavenger hunt, they're doing things like find the copier and make copies of the manage mats that we want you to use in your classroom. They're meeting their logistical needs of learning where the copier is. They're printing off things that are going to help them in their classroom management. And they're getting set up for cooperative learning day one, because in our cooperative learning, we talk about manage mats. Right? So it's not something that we're just asking them to do. Yes? Sure. District level. So the only thing on this window that is not at the division level is the school essentials. That is done at the school level. So again, because we wanted their logistical needs met, we knew if we brought them to us first, without letting them see their classrooms, that we would not be able to talk to them, and they would be wondering too many things. And that's why that checklist was awesome, because now we took something and made it in 3 hours that made them feel safe to come to us and now start thinking. Thank you. So again, this new teacher academy, our new teacher academy used to be 5 days, now it's 4. So we had to really reshift. Again, I'm not saying do this, I'm saying think about how you can embody the idea of meeting all of these needs without overwhelming them with instruction.
I love this on visual. Is there a percentage you try to go for that you move? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like we have a percentage of emotional we want to do until we tailor off and get more percentage of
No.
instructional.
We actually do it, so we do it a different way, which is we ask what instructional priorities do we know they need by the end of New Teacher Academy? And then we say, okay, what do we need to do that? And then we backwards plan that everything else is the others.
Oh, so once you're done with the
Yep. And then if it starts feeling like it's too much instruction, then we'll shift and say, what can we cut? And that's a great question because it segues, I'll pay you later. All right, it segues into the second piece. Now, we have a bunch of non-traditional teachers in our environment. And if you do all this stuff, feeling stuff, you're probably sitting there, some of you, I know, the analytical people are like, yeah, so cool. When they get to their first day of the classroom, they've got a management on the table and they're going to stand there like this. So what we realize is that, hey, we need to give them a safe place to learn some things that we assume most people know. And so we actually added in what's called an optional jump start. So this is not on their contract. They do not have to attend. We did it for the first time this summer. We had over 80% of our first year teachers show up. The jump start is instructional only. So it is to give them the basic vocabulary and ideas of instruction so they can get that without any of the other clutter in their mind. Yes? Good question. We actually, all first-year teachers to our division, so whether they have experience or not, are coming to our new teacher academy because we are only focusing on division initiatives that all teachers need to know, and they may or may not have experience with those things in their previous division. And I can tell you some of our feedback from experienced teachers, especially like our reading support teacher who's not even coming into a full-time teaching role, is sometimes like this is a little bit of basic. But that's where you got to be thoughtful around, right? Like all of you are in different places. I'm not going to sit there and tell you all of this stuff and then that's the end. I want you to wrestle. So we do a lot of cooperative learning in our sessions where we purposely are we actually build in opportunities where they partner up, one that is new to teaching, one that is new to the division, and then they work at the same tables. And so that when we're doing dialogues, we have experts already at the room, and then it's about how do we shift thinking. And so we're very purposeful around those things. Yep. And so, and I'm going to I promise there's going to be more time for questions, but I just want to make sure we hit this and give you guys some time to wrestle. So Jumpstart was optional. Our non-union state loved it. And it was really around the basics of the instructional cycle. So plan, instruct, assess. And you'll notice there's two of them because we wanted to help them see that you do this for the year, you do this for a unit, you do this for a lesson, right? You continue, this is granular. And we, in our division, I hope most of us adhere to the idea of standards-based backward design. So we told them how this looks through standards-based backwards design. And now we didn't want to get bogged down in content. And again, we're working with people who don't have a background in education, most of them, right? I shouldn't say most, roughly half, all right? So what we did is we took all the content out of it. We went through every piece of this puzzle through an analogy of going on a camping trip. So there was no, well, I'm not a math teacher. Oh, I'm not a social studies teacher. But it also helped everything be connected. So we started by talking about what our standard was, which was building a solution to a multi-constrained problem, going on a camping trip with limited space. And then we went through what each part of that would look like. What would our summative assessment need to look like? How does it align to our standard? What does a lesson look like? And then we started giving them basics. So like, what's a graphic organizer? Like, again, we're talking instructional basics for our jumpstart, right? And so we went through all of those steps with them in 8 hours. And then when they went to New Teacher Academy, they weren't sitting there like, what does that word mean? I've never heard assessment in my life. And that was the goal, right? And it was highly successful. As a facilitator, I think it was the best session ever presented. All right? And then lastly is the team throughout the year, which is our program. What do we do during our year? The first thing is that we have division and school level meetings. And this is where we actually embed our curriculum, that mantra, the warm demander, the proactive classroom management, and that's what we're working on throughout all of it. And now this is where the power is in what we're doing, and what I'd love to have you kind of think about that cohesion is, we're talking about our curriculum, they're implementing our curriculum, and then we're coaching them on the curriculum, right? So we're working with them in instructional coaching capacities to help them think about those ideas that they're learning in their meetings, and that becomes the focus of our work when we're working in their classrooms. There's 55 fires we could put out with a first-year teacher. Let's put out the ones that we said were the priorities. How do we set up good norms and procedures? How do we get procedures in place that actually allow us to have classroom management? How do we do chunking in a lesson? Those little basics. Okay? And so the tenets of our instructional coaching model, again, you might have your own model already, but if you don't, here are the things that make us so successful and why I think our teachers feel so supported. The first is, it's expected. So all first-year teachers are going to work with a professional growth specialist through their first year teaching, and that's a professional expectation of them. It's on contract hours, so there's no money needed to be exchanged. It's just we are going to set up time with our first-year teachers regularly to work around the curriculum. The second is that, and this is the biggest, all work is confidential. Administrators cannot ask me, what do you think about Johnny? And if they do, I say, you should go to Johnny's classroom and see. And now they can talk to me and say, hey, Dean, can you work with Johnny on this? And I can say, what we're working on is this. And that's the extent of the conversation. But we're not going into what I think about Johnny ever. And that's been huge because our teachers know that we're a safe space. Oops. Third is that we're always focused on team. Team is our instructional priorities. So we let the teacher have voice and choice in what they want to think about from the team program, but we're not letting them pick things out of left field, right? Unless we have a conversation and we realize that's what really is their need. But in general, most of them, their first year, they don't know what they need yet, so they all pick things that are coming out of the curriculum that we've built with them. And then lastly, coaching first mindset. If you don't have a coaching model in your division, I would push you to get one and read some literature around it. If you don't know the terms coaching, collaborating, and consulting, that's where I would start. But the idea is that we don't go in to fix our teachers. We go in to hear and to mediate their thinking and to help them see how the things they're thinking about align to the team program. All right, so we go in with a coaching first mindset. So for the last little bit of time, what I want to do is I'm going to now pause us and let you all go back, and I want you to get to refine some of your thinking for your future reality based on all the stuff we just talked about. So I'm going to skip this because I'm looking at time. That was a lot, I know. And now I want to give you guys some time to wrestle. So if you have any questions you'd like me to try to address with the group, feel free to write it on a sticky and I'll snag it and I'll talk about it. But what I want you all to do is you now have the ability to open up the last thing on your table, which is number 3. And that is just a resource packet of all the stuff we just talked about, so you have visual representations, and I'm going to share all of these electronically with you. There's also stuff we didn't talk about in that packet. And so now, for the next about 10 minutes, what I'd like you guys to do is look through the packet, look at your future reality, look at your strategies, and start thinking about what you want to adapt to make it work for you. And I'll be walking around and answering any questions, but if you have anything specific you think would be good for the group, let me know, and then we'll come together at the end to do closure for this, and then to hopefully do the survey. Right? So I'll give you guys a few minutes. I'll be walking around. So if we could come back together just one more time. What I'd like to do for the closure is we're all in different places in our thinking, and I hope that getting to look through those, again, my goal was not to give you a resource packet and say do. I want you to look at the resource packet and say, how might I adapt for what I have in my situation? All right? And so as you're looking at that and you're refining it, I hope that what you'll do is take all of the different things that we just did and then not throw them in the trash can on the way out and say, I want to look at this some more and think about it. And I'll provide you with every one of these graphic organizer blank copies so that if you want to go back and work with your team on one of those, you can start this from scratch and just go through this process and you can start getting to where you want to be. But what I want to do for your closure is I want you to look back at that future reality. And I want you to ask, which things can I start working on when I get back? So when I'm on the plane or when I'm in my car, don't do it in your car. When I get back, when I get back to the office, whatever that might be, what's one or two things, box them in. What are the ones I can start working on the moment I get back? What do I want to prioritize to make my program better? But what I want you to do is on a sticky note, it's not, the closure isn't just box things. I want you to take a sticky note for each thing you box, and I want you to just briefly write what is the action you need to do. Who is your who, your what, and your when. So who are you going to need to talk with? What are you going to need to talk about? And when are you going to do it? And your who might be myself. That's okay. It doesn't have to be with somebody else, all right? But what are you going to do, and when are you going to do it? Okay, and I hope that you can write down an action that you're going to take that will continue to push your thinking through on how we are going to reimagine teacher induction. And what I'd love to do, because what's a good session without a quote, right? So I want to give you two quotes that I think if you can come back to, we talk about establishing a mantra. If you think about either of these quotes, I'll let you choose which one you think is more impactful. As you are working through your teacher induction program, your mentoring program, you will start realizing that we need to reimagine. Because here's the first one. Oh, shoot, I just kidding, I'm 3 slides ahead. This isn't a quote, I wrote this on a slide. Refinement is never ending, this is not the quote. Wow, that's beautiful. Wait, great job, Dean. Really powerful thinking here to close out the session. All right, so a few questions that we're wrestling with, because again, we don't have a perfect program, and then I'm gonna give you the quotes, is how do we continue our mentors' growth as teacher leaders, given that we're reducing the amount of things we're asking them to do in terms of leadership? The second is, how do we better streamline the ideas we bring in at New Teacher Academy throughout our curriculum? How do we make our new teacher curriculum even more coherent than it is, right? We still wrestle with things feeling like a collection of things because there's so many things we need our teachers to know. And then lastly, how do we scale our work for our second and third year teachers if we know we need to invest so much in our first year teachers, given the resources we have? Because they're not just great teachers now because they got to year 2. All right, so here are the quotes. I lied. These are the quotes, I promise. All right, the first one is this, and I love this quote. Every system is perfectly designed to get the results it gets. So if you are not happy with the results you are getting, it is not the person in the room, it is not the teacher, it is not the student, it is the system. So how do we change the system? And the second is my boy Albert. We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used when we created them. All right? So if you wrestle with that, what those things mean, and you use that, and you say to yourself, I believe that quote, then you have to be willing to reflect on what your mentoring and induction program looks like. And if you think you have problems, you got to change it. All right, so with that said, I want to thank you all so much for your time. I did want to build in those last 2-3 minutes because I would really, really appreciate if you guys would do the kick-up survey before you leave, because I know once you get on that plane, there is no chance in heck you're going to do it. You can get it through the app, or you can do it through this link. Our session is 3218. And then if you didn't get to sign up, this is on your table, but I'm going to email everyone in the room that signs up the resources that's in your packet, the protocols, the slides, the recording, everything will come through this. I might send you 2 emails because I'll get you the resources now and then the recording once I have a chance to do it. And then lastly, if you'd like to keep in touch, if you want to think through ideas, I seriously value the ability to wrestle with these ideas. My email's here at the bottom. And if you're a social media person and you want to make me feel really cool, do a post on the Twitter X. All right, so thank you guys with that. If you don't mind doing the survey before you leave. If you'd like a blank copy of any of the resources, I have extras at the front. But with that said, I'm going to let you guys have this time to do that, and I'll just be here to answer any lingering questions before you guys leave. And just thank you so much for your time, and good luck. Appreciate it.
This checklist, you said that it leads to, can you explain that?
Yeah, so the person who's in charge of this at the school that's running this session, we share a spreadsheet with them that just has 3 columns: teacher, ID number, need. And then they fill that in for anything that's a no. The
Teacher
person,
does?
the person in charge of the session, and then what we do is we share that spreadsheet with the head of IT, the head of HR, and they're telling who to do the things. Yep.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, how
Yeah.
did you come up with the idea? Like that was my thing. I was like, okay, so how did you all like my thought was, do you wait until you see who signed up for it to then design? Because that's brilliant.
Well, we used the needs of our do this. Sorry. We used the needs that we were picking up as professional growth specialists for our non-traditional teachers. And we said, let's make a list. And then we said, which of these can we address in a meaningful way if we had only 8 hours with them? And that's how we built it. And then we advertised that is what we're going to do so that nobody showed up thinking they were going to get something, you know, and it was a session completely unrelated to what they needed. Yep.
Because the biggest thing that we're seeing is whether you are coming through traditional teacher prep or not, is you're getting in and we have fantastic collaborative teams. So then your team lead is saying, fantastic, here's our stuff.
Yep.
Boom.
Yep.
And then you just take it and you're teaching it.
Yep.
But you like
no understanding of what's going on.
Correct.
Yep.
You're just grabbing the thing from Google Docs.
So that's actually in
our
our
and then going.
That's one of our new Teacher Academy sessions on purpose is so again, we have facilitators that are in charge of that process.
Yeah.
So you might need to do this with team leaders, but the idea, or content coordinator or somebody, is that they actually have an introduction to the CLT process as part of it, just to get the jargon down and how we work as teams.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have this, but I just feel like I really
Sure.
want to do. We hire our first year teacher class is about 200 teachers every year.
Nice.
60% of them this year are what we call associate teachers, which means they have just signed up to their alternate program. They have a bachelor's degree.
We have the
The
same.
majority of them are hired after the new teacher academy. How do you fill the gap?
You don't.
Learning. Okay, I know, but that's where we
No,
are.
but for there's two things that we've done. We actually started making a late hire checklist, the same thing.
Okay.
That is taking the key components from those categories of things that we talked about, like the logistical needs and all that. And then we set up the meet and greet, no matter when they were hired. And we use the meet and greet, it starts transitioning to have a high level overview of some of the stuff they missed. But then because our curriculum is going to keep coming back to it, then we start in our meetings helping them shore that up. But then we typically are meeting with them a couple of times as soon as they're there. Other divisions I've seen run, if they have the resources, they'll run a mini 1-day new teacher academy once a month. And then anyone who's late hired is asked, they get a sub on that day and they come in to kind of get the high level stuff. So it's really dependent on what your division can do.
Can I ask you a question
Sure.
as well? So I'm from California.
Yeah.
So we have state induction that teachers need to complete, as well as district level priorities in our induction process that we're actually doing for the county.
Okay. Yeah. But what I would push on that, just thinking about it, is again, when you have constraints, I'm a believer that you have to work within your constraints while you're working to change if they don't make sense. So I would probably start with your constraints instead of starting with your future reality. And then, start there and say, okay, now if these are what I have to do, how do I connect them to the mantra I'm establishing? And that way that I can start, I know that what I'm being told I don't ever want to go into a session and say the state's making me do this, right? Because then it's lost all power.
There's zero.
Right, exactly. Yep.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Oh, no problem.
So,
I have a question.
Yeah,
Sorry.
please.
So Jumpstart happens prior to this.
Yes.
It's 1 day.
Yep.
And then, so this is all new teachers for 4 days.
Yes.
So when does everyone else come?
The next day. Yep. And
1 day as a whole school.
we actually have a whole week. We have 4 days of what we call Welcome Week, where it's a lot of
4 days is an addition.
Yes. So in our contracts, we have 200-day contracts, but teachers are only assigned 194 days in that contract, which then allows us to take several of those days and put them on the contracts of our new teachers as those additional days. But if that's something that your division couldn't do, then I would be wrestling with, what can I, even if it's 1 day, but what's something where I can get my new teachers together? Or if you have a Welcome Week, how could I do it? How could I work with my division leaders to then make a new teacher specific part of Welcome Week? Something like